Hi there, Andy. How are you?
Hey man, hold on 2 seconds. Let me just expand it. There we go.
Okay.
Hey dude, how you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks a lot for joining.
Did you get my email? I tried to see if Chris and Tino
Yeah,
were around.
yeah, I
Yeah,
got it. I got it. Because my son is not feeling well today, so I'm kind
no,
of
no problem, man.
online
Yeah,
and
no, because
offline.
obviously I'm good for anything in the last 15 years, but anything from old history,
Yeah.
I know it. Believe you me, I know it. But it's but both of them were tied up today. We've had a hectic few weeks, so
Okay. Well, the press release mentions that Defiance builds on the success of Catharsis while staying true to the band's roots. Can you elaborate on how Defiance builds upon the previous albums and what elements of the band's roots are most prominent?
yeah, sure. I mean, um, I joined the band in 2000, and I'm not good with dates, 2007, and we did the Sanctuary album. Then we did Legacy, and we did the Sanctuary album with Mike Freeland and another drummer. And then since 2000 since the Legacy album, we joined up with two Dutch guys, singer John JC Kuipers and drummer Hans in het Zand. And the last four albums, I'm just looking at my albums to check. Yeah, the last four albums have been with those guys. So we've kind of molded a sort of sound and a way of doing things that seems to work pretty nicely. So Defiance was moving on from Legacy, Gravity, then Catharsis, and now um, what's the new album called? Defiance. Yeah, sorry, I've had a long day. And yes, I mean, obviously, Chris, Troy, and Tino were the founder members of Mantis back in '74. I think it's 50th anniversary this year. I was at school and I was a fan in the late '70s of Mantis when they first played with Iron Maiden in London. So it would always be Iron Maiden, Praying Mantis. And I liked Mantis. I mean, I loved Maiden at the time, but I liked Mantis because they had a lot of backing vocals and they had that harmony thing, which a lot of new wave of British heavy metal bands didn't have at the time. It was more guitar attack, where Praying Mantis always went for more melody and backing vocals. And I think that's been the thing that's carried through all of the albums they did. Obviously, they now had the whole period with Dennis Stratton in the '90s, where they did 10 albums, I think. I'm not sure. Probably they did lots of albums and became very popular in Japan. Dennis then parted and they went their own ways very amiably. I mean, we all know Dennis very well. And the new direction has been since about 2007. So we're definitely, always been working on the melody side of things and the strong backing vocals, strong choruses, and also the twin guitar thing, which is a strong part of the band. So, I mean, writing wise, Chris writes a lot, I write a lot, and Tino. So Tino tends to write a couple of songs on each album. I do four. Chris does normally six or so. But it's we've got a good way of working that we kind of work. We all have our own studios. We tend to sort of write, throw things into a pool, and then sort of see what we've got, and then figure out how we're going to develop those into a kind of a theme for the next album. But I
Uh,
think there is definitely the twin guitar thing is and the backing vocals are the main thing that sort of people associate Praying Mantis with, and we've that's what we've kept doing. That's what we've stayed true to.
you play keyboards as well. Do you ever incorporate keyboards into your songwriting or recording process
Yeah,
with
I
Praying
mean,
Mantis?
I mean, I say I play keyboards. I tend to do this. But I sometimes I write stuff on keyboards. I write stuff on guitar. It just depends. But it's that Chris writes a lot on keyboards actually, because obviously he more sort of obviously he's a bass player. Chris can play great guitar, but he tends to write with keyboards and bass. He would send me a song. and I would then develop the song with guitar. Tino would develop the other parts, or vice versa. It just depends on the song, really. So it's a system we've been using for a while now, and it works really well. We very rarely record in a studio altogether. We did the Sanctuary album in Atlanta altogether, but these days, with the costs and the ease of writing separately, then what tends to happen is we do the drums then in a studio, and then we'll go in and just layer everything up. But we would have written the bones of the song and created all the keyboard parts and that separately, because it just saves a lot of time. And you can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when you feel like it, instead of being under pressure to do it in a studio.
Okay. You mentioned that the strong points of Praying Mantis, what separates the band from other new age heavy metal bands, was the melody, the emphasis on the backing vocals, the layered vocals. This Defiance, I felt it's a more melodic and AOR influence sound to compare to some of previous Mantis, earlier Praying Mantis,
I
earlier
don't know. I mean,
works.
Catharsis.
Yeah.
Yeah, the early stuff, obviously, but then they were 20 years old.
But was there a conscious decision to move the band towards in this direction, or did it evolve naturally?
No, I don't. Not a conscious decision. It's just what we, what we do. I mean, we tend to write and throw songs into the pot, and then the ones that we think are strong and that have the the strong choruses and the strong melodies, we take forwards. I don't think we are kind of that sort of a band, and haven't been for some time, where we would do like proper metal. It's not really in our genes. And even right back to Captured City and all the stuff from the very early days, and on Time Tells No Lies, it wasn't metal. It was kind of melodic rock, but recorded more basically, if you like. So now we have the ability to use keyboards and layer things up. And also our influences tend to be more, melodic stuff. We still get on bills in festivals. We're always with new wave of British heavy metal bands. So it's kind of a strange mix, but it works well. I mean, it does us well, and we've just had a very successful tour of Japan. So it's and the Japanese fans were very up for it. So it's obviously still works. It's a recipe I like, and I like melodic stuff, as I know Chris does, and Tino as well. We all have, if you know who's written each song, you can tell on the albums who's written each song, if you know what I mean, by the influences and the flavors. But they never really, if you listen to the stuff in the 90s with Dennis, they were very AOR then as well. It hasn't really been any different to them. They did a lot of very keyboard orientated melodic stuff since the early days. So I wouldn't say it's not a conscious decision. It's just how things kind of work, and we like it.
2 months ago, I interviewed Neil Kay, the DJ from the bandwagon, and he mentioned that in his opinion, no other new wave of British heavy metal band, more than Praying Mantis, deserved to get a huge status. I mean, in your opinion, what prevented the band from reaching this higher status?
There's lots of stories. And I'd say Tino and Chris would be much better positioned to tell you those stories. But it comes down to management, decisions made, and just the way things worked. I mean, it's there was definitely the opportunities back then to have really gone to a higher level. But things happen. The Tino and Chris had families, and they had careers in other directions, and we're all adults. It needn't necessarily be that they achieved a certain level. It just seemed to be that's the way it was. There are lots of stories which I don't want to recount
Mhm.
on bad management decisions and
Mhm.
choices that they made at a
Mhm.
time that's
Mhm.
out of my
The
hands, man.
the
And
correct.
obviously, we look at
Mhm.
the thing is with bands like, I mean, the obvious one would be Maiden. Um, uh, they had a very, right from the outset, they had a very strong management, very strong uh, image, very strong organization that got them to where they were because of the whole thing just worked with the Eddie and the logo and the whole thing. And it probably was, there was that period of time between Time Tells No Lies and then them going to Japan with Paul Di'Anno and then rekindling the whole band. That's where things, I think, got a bit lost in the mix a bit. But the truth of the matter is, we're all pretty happy where we are. Obviously, we'd like to have our own jet, but there's very few
Mhm.
bands that we know that would be in that scenario now. And we're all mature guys. We enjoy what we do. We get to travel all over the world, and we enjoy what we do. So uh, it could have gone another way, but hey, it is what it is.
It surprised me how good classic bands like Praying Mantis are still putting out strong albums today. What are your thoughts on this sentiment when you think of the bands from the same era as Praying Mantis, such as Tokyo Blade, for example? They are still putting out strong albums today.
Yeah, well, it's great. I mean, we tour a lot. We play a lot in Europe, especially Germany, and there's lots of bands like Demon, that we play with regularly, and we all enjoy what we do, man. And we know how to write songs, so it's a good formula. It's there's lots of bands from the early days. I was a fan in 79, 80. I was 15, I think, leaving school, and we used to go to all the, London was a great place then for new wave of British heavy metal. Every night you could go out to the Marquee, to any club, and see a range of bands from More through to Mantis through to Iron Maiden in small clubs. These days, there's not that same structure and network, so we have to be very sort of tactical in how we work. But it's a very different way of managing the bands, and that you tend to work towards a new album and then look at what festivals there are available in Europe and then link things together with tours. But we see the same guys out
Mhm.
there still doing it regularly. And some friends of ours, which Titan from Titan, ex Angel Witch, that sort of guys, we always see them out there on the road. And we all still love what we do. And we're all still alive, thank goodness. Just.
Andy Bolton from Tokyo Blade, which I interviewed two times in the last few years, mentioned that things started to change inside of him and within the band when he stopped feeling the pressure to live up to the past glories. That he, at this point of his career, developed a sense of creative freedom.
Yeah, yeah.
Does this
But
apply
like
to
I'm saying
Praying?
with us,
Yeah, does this apply to Praying
yeah,
Mantis?
absolutely. I mean, as well, we are on the Frontiers label, which is, you know, renowned for its more sort of AOR style albums as opposed to heads down metal. Not that we write for Frontiers, but it works. The stuff we write now fits their label and it fits what we do. But when we play live, we do a lot of the old stuff as well, and especially we would do in Germany, for example, we were asked to do an old school set, which we can do. When we go to Japan, which we've just come back from, we tend to put in a lot of the old Time Tells No Lies songs because that's their angle on the band. But on apart from that, we just have the freedom to really do what we want, which, hey, we're musicians. We don't want to be tied back to something that happened in 1979.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we understand the legacy and the reason why people know the name and why people come and see us. So, and I enjoy playing the old stuff as much as I enjoy playing the new songs. So it's always great.
Defiance features a cover of Russ Ballard's "I Surrender." Can you talk about the band's decision to revisit the song and how you approach putting your own stamp on it?
It was my idea actually, because there was this story from, I don't know when, 1970 whatever, where Mantis were offered the song. Then they had recorded it as a demo, and then they were literally told, "Oh, Rainbow were releasing it," and it came out with, you know, the Rainbow version came out. So Mantis had already sort of planned to do the song and release it. And that story kept coming up every so often, and it was like, not in a bad way, but obviously Rainbow, it was I think it was #1 across the world. So, you know, you can't argue with that fact. But then with this album, I think we were in an interview and it came up again. And I thought, look, hey, why don't we do it again? You know, why don't we see how it sounds? So I pulled the basis of the track together. And we then, John, our singer, was over from Holland. So we got him into the studio and he put the vocal down straight away. And we went, yeah, it seems to work. So we worked on it. Then Tino added the kind of, it's got a slight Mantis feel to it with the guitar line Tino added, which gives it a slight Mantis feel. So we did, it's not, we weren't trying to redo the song, but we just wanted to give it some power and some, but it was good fun to record, and it's a great song. And we suddenly realized when we were in Japan, we should have really done it out there, because it would have gone down well, but we weren't that organized. But yeah, no, it was obviously there was a history to the song that the band had already recorded it, and it was another one of these if only things. But obviously Rainbow had the opportunity, and they you know, did a cracking job with it at the time. So
a few reviewers mention 3 specific tracks that stood out to them: Forever in My Heart, Standing Tall, and Let's See.
okay.
Regarding the repertoire of the album, which songs stand out to you?
Yeah. Well, we've started. We've been playing Standing Tall live, and I mean, that's definitely not new wave of British heavy metal, man. It's got like a real disco beat to it. And Tino wrote it, and I was down at his place. He lives down on the coast now, and we were down there having a weekend of playing and enjoying ourselves. And he played me the track, and I was like, "Oh man, that's rocket!" And so that's suddenly become a big part of our live set now, and it's quite strange playing at a venue with full of rock fans, and it's got this kind of dance beat, but does it work? It sounds great live, and it really does work. So that's one of my favorites. Forever in My Heart was a strange one. Essentially, John came up with the idea for the melody of that, and that developed really nicely. Again, he was over, and it all suddenly went from 0 to finished very quickly. For me, there's so many tracks on the album I like. I mean, it's I've worked on them all, you know, myself, Tino and Chris have worked on them all. It all becomes a bit, you get a bit blind to it. So it would be good now to sit back and listen to the album again. Once it's done and it's gone, you don't want to hear it for a while. So it's quite nice to then a few months later sit back and do it. But the track I particularly like is the instrumental that me and Tino did together, because Night Swim, which I've always been a big fan of Joe Satriani, and I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. And they hadn't done an instrumental since, I think it was a track called The Horn or something off an album in the 90s. And I suggested doing an instrumental. So I had an idea knocking around, which was the first half of the song. And then again, I was down with Tino, and I could hear him in another room playing something. And I was like, man, that would just fit together. So we kind of pulled the song together like that. And we had great fun recording, layering up all the guitar parts. There's a lot of harmony guitars on there.
Mhm.
And so that one I really enjoy. I would like to listen to again. So after this, I may go back and listen to it. I may go, oh my God, what were we thinking? But at the time, it seemed to work nice.
And how has the initial fan and critical reception been for the album so far?
Yeah, great. Yeah, really good. I mean, we you never know. But we have now this sort of recipe that we use, which because we're with Frontiers, we know that you know, we're not going to upset people by releasing something that's not, you know, death metal. So yeah, the reception's been great. I mean, and also playing the songs live, and especially in Japan, they particularly were very keen on this album, and that's a territory that we always like to ensure that they are, you know, that they're on board with what we're doing, because we hadn't been for 7 years, and so literally we got back last weekend or the weekend before, and the feedback was great. It was amazing, and venues were packed, and everybody was very happy.
As
So
we
yeah, no, I mean, we're very, very impressed, very happy with the album.
as we mentioned before, this year marks the band's 50th anniversary. Um, is anything in the plans regarding the celebration? I mean, maybe
Yeah, well, the Japan was the idea to do that, was based on the 50th anniversary, and we called it the last tour of Japan because logistics are so difficult now to get over there and make the whole thing viable, just the whole thing. Of course, when we're out there and it went really well, we may think we may go back again, but you never say never. But the last tour we're doing has been, our t-shirts have got 50th anniversary. It's 50 years since Tino and Chris together formed the first incarnation of the band. So it's a little bit, obviously 50th anniversary would probably really be when Time Tells No Lies came out, or maybe Metal for Mothers with Captured City. So it's pushing it a little bit, 50 years. It's a long time either way. So yeah, no, we've been, the t-shirts have a great logo on the back, 50 years of metal, you know. So
are there any plans for Praying Mantis to tour in South America, specifically in Brazil?
yes, well, this is something we're working on at the moment. It comes up every so often because obviously we know bands that do tour, Tank, Gordiano, you know, those guys come over regularly. We've always found it difficult to find the right package and the right promoter, but things are just falling into place now for 2025. So we are, for me personally, it would be just a wow, you know, to come to South America.
Yeah.
Every time we've got close to it, there's been some disaster and it hasn't happened. And we have to be sure that everything is in place before we commit. But yeah, no, it's looking really good. This year we were supposed to have come, but it's something terrible happened actually to the promoter, and so we are now working on 2025 and hopefully a nice amount of shows. But it's just finding the right guy who can ensure the whole thing is you know, packaged properly and delivered properly. But definitely it's an ambition of all of ours, and just the thought of it makes me go, oh, I just that would just be
You
so cool.
you have a real passion for cooking and also run a street food business, right?
Oh, that was a few years ago, man.
No,
That
not
was probably
anymore.
something you read. Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, no, I've like all of us, we all have you know, we're not Iron Maiden, we can't live off this, and also we all like enjoy our other careers. You know, for us, music is a great thing to do, but there's other things in life as well. And in fact, recently, I've always run my own businesses, and one of them was a food business. But it's hard work. It's a hard way to make money. And yes, I still enjoy cooking, but that was a hard way to make money. But I teach, so now I teach as well, and I teach adults with learning disabilities. So I work with autistic guys, getting them back into work. So, but the good thing is I can do it and take time off, and I find having something else challenging in life is you know, it makes it easier then when you come back to the writing, because you're not just focused on that, you've got other influences to pull from, and you know, other sides of your life that you can bring into the writing side of things. But you know, we all do different jobs. Chris is a very talented designer of he works in like hospitals designing air conditioning or something. But we're all on the verge of retiring. So Tino ran a successful building thing, and so we've always managed to, you know, we like having a house and you know, the things that go with it. But I think it's kept us sane, and it's kept us fresh, and it's kept us enthusiastic when you come to the music, when you can draw on other influences, and you can like you know, have more of a experience in life instead of just touring. Because believe you me, man, after the last few weeks, I was actually glad to go back to work after. If I see, well, we're flying tomorrow to Spain, to Cartagena, to the Rock Imperium Festival with Glenn Hughes and Richie Kotzen. I think Judas Priest are doing it.
Amazing.
So we're going, oh, another airport, man. It's like, but
Are you?
and then we're back to the Czech Republic, and you know, so it's great. So,
are you still passionate about restoring classic American cars?
yes, yeah, that was another thing I did for a while. Yeah, I don't know where you've read all this, but this was probably a few years ago. Yeah, no, I got involved with a guy we used to buy. He still does it. I saw him the other day, but I don't get physically involved. I realized I could lose my fingers using an angle grinder under a car. so I decided maybe I would not so much, but I still help out there. But yeah, no, a lot of unusual cars, a lot of American cars, big trucks, Ford 150s and stuff like that we did.
And how do you manage to find time for everything you enjoy?
Because I just do, really. The music kind of comes in waves. So obviously the touring is one thing, it's the writing is the one thing. But being a lecturer, especially at college, we get a lot of holiday. So, you know, there's the whole of the summer, you know, we get 6 weeks of summer, and, you know, but also when I come home in the evening, I'm sitting now in my little mini studio. You know, it looks like my back room, but this is my little mini studio. And, you know, after a day doing something else, I can sit down and start writing, you know, instead of getting up in the morning and thinking I'm going to start writing. It's, you know, there's always things going on in my head about, oh, there's an idea, and I'll come home, get the things, food sorted out, and then get it down, and then maybe keep those in the bank until we think about doing another album. So there's always something going on.
Regarding your musical career, do you still have dreams to be fulfilled?
South America, definitely. 100%, man. Japan was one of my big things. And when I joined Mantis, I'm like, when do we go to Japan? and so now this last tour was my 5th, but South America, all of us really want to do that more than North America, really, to be honest with you. I think South America, we just, you know, we see other bands coming over to you know, to tour South America, and the fans just seem just like on a different level.
Yeah.
So that would be that would be and we know lots of guys from South America who live over here, and they all say you've just got to go. So that's our main ambition. Obviously, you know, there's some weird ones we would still like to do. Russia, we would love to play in Russia. We actually have quite a big fan base in Russia, and Asia as well, Australia, but South America is the one that we really pang to do. That would be a definite tick.
It must be great to see this dream becoming a reality song, right?
Well, let's hope so. It hasn't happened yet, but we're hoping 2025 will be the year for us in South America. So we've just got to, as I say, put the right things in place, find the right guys, and make it, you know, make it something special. And we would like to come over and really, you know, do something special in South America, because the fan base has always been there for us. And we see the feedback all the time through the social media.
Come to Brazil.
Yeah, well, man, we definitely will. If that would be my first choice on the you know, on the gig list. But yeah, it will happen. Well, it's going to have to happen, or else we won't be around to see it. So yeah, no, 2025, I'm 99% sure it's going to happen. So
man, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, man.
Hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and fingers crossed, because I love to see Praying Mantis live in my country.
You will, man. Yeah. And we'll keep in touch, and you know, when I know more, I'll let you know, and then we'll be pushing all the buttons to make sure it's a successful tour.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
cool,
man.
Dude. Cheers, man. Cool. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.